You don't need to believe in God to need God. That sentence might feel strange in your mouth, like saying a word you haven't used in years. But let it sit for a second. Let it stretch out in the silence. You don't need to believe in God to need God, because belief is intellectual. It's the part of your mind that says yes or no, real or not real, true or false. But need lives somewhere deeper. Need is what shows up when everything else falls apart. When your logic breaks down and your clever words feel hollow. Need is what's left when you're staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering why you feel so damn empty. And that need, that's real, whether you believe or not. We don't talk about it much, especially if we consider ourselves rational, modern, educated. We avoid words like sacred, soul, divine. They feel outdated, like relics from a past life. We replace them with authenticity, mindfulness, healing. We meditate instead of pray. We journal instead of confess. We chase personal growth instead of surrender. But the ache is the same. We still feel that quiet hunger for something more than success, more than pleasure, more than productivity, more than being seen. We want to feel like we belong to something, like there's a thread tying our life together, like we matter, not just to other people, but to something deeper, something eternal. That doesn't go away just because you stop believing. In fact, for many people, the ache only gets louder once the belief is gone, because now there's no framework to hold the longing, no language to give shape to it, no ritual to bring it out of hiding. So it festers. It turns into anxiety, numbness, restlessness. We think we're just burned out, or overworked, or going through a phase. But really, we're starving. Starving for meaning. Starving for a reason to wake up that's deeper than survival. And here's the part we're not supposed to say out loud. Sometimes we miss God. Even if we don't believe anymore. Not the rules, not the dogma, not the sermons or the shame, but the sense that someone or something is holding this whole mess together. That the beauty we feel isn't just chemical, that the grief we carry isn't wasted, that our lives are being witnessed by more than our social media followers, that we're not alone. There's a part of you, no matter how skeptical, that longs for that, longs to be held, longs to be seen, longs to be known, in a way no human being could ever fully manage. And we keep trying to fill that longing with substitutes, with experiences, with people, with ideas, with work, with art, with love. And sometimes they get close, but none of them quite touch the center. None of them reach that deep place that still whispers in the quiet. Is there something more? That whisper isn't weakness. It's not intellectual failure. It's the soul doing what it was made to do. Reach. You can reject everything about religion and still need wonder. You can roll your eyes at spirituality and still ache for transcendence. You can be an atheist and still pray in moments of desperation. Not because you think someone's listening, but because something in you still needs someone to listen. You don't need to believe in God to need God, because the need isn't theological, it's existential. It's the human condition. It's the side of us that no amount of logic can erase. So let the ache speak. Let the longing breathe. You don't need to have answers. You just need to stop pretending the questions aren't there. There's a lie we keep telling ourselves, that we're supposed to have everything we need inside us, that if we just dig deep enough, work hard enough, self-actualize skillfully enough, we'll be whole. That's the myth. Self-sufficiency as salvation. The fully independent, emotionally bulletproof human who needs nothing outside themselves. And it's killing us. Because beneath all our curated strength is this quiet truth. We are not enough for ourselves. We were never meant to be. You can have the best habits, the cleanest diet, the most enlightened perspective. You can go to therapy, journal every day, wake up at 5 a.m., and drink your affirmations with your lemon water. But eventually, you'll hit a moment, life cracks you open, and no amount of self-optimization will save you. Because this ache we carry, it isn't just about not being happy. It's about not being held, not by a routine, not by a mindset, but by something bigger. We keep reaching for control, trying to manage the chaos. We tell ourselves we've outgrown needing a higher power. But the truth is, we've just gotten better at distracting ourselves. We've built a whole culture around staying busy, so we never have to feel how much we've lost. And what we've lost is wonder, dependence, surrender. The ability to say, I don't have what it takes to carry this alone. That's not weakness, that's honesty. But honesty is uncomfortable when everything in our world screams independence. Even the most secular self-help wisdom still borrows from the spiritual, still mimics the structure of prayer, confession, repentance, transformation. We're just too proud to admit we're kneeling. So instead of God, we bow to productivity. Instead of grace, we chase perfection. Instead of mystery, we demand mastery. But mastery won't save your soul. Perfection won't hold you in your grief. And productivity won't love you when you're falling apart. There's a kind of strength that only comes when you admit your weakness. And there's a kind of freedom that only shows up when you surrender the illusion of control. This isn't about converting to religion. It's not about signing up for dogma. It's about remembering that you weren't built to do this alone. Your longing is not a flaw. Your hunger for something greater is not a failure of intellect. It's the most honest part of you. You don't need to have the answers. You just need to stop pretending that you don't have the questions. There's no shame in needing something sacred. There's only shame in pretending you don't. There's a kind of absence that doesn't feel empty. It feels heavy. Not like something is missing, like something is watching. Like a presence with no name. A silence that has weight. You don't believe in God, not really. Or maybe you used to. But now, all the old words feel hollow. Maybe faith didn't hold up under grief. Or science gave you sharper tools. Or religion hurt you more than it healed. Whatever the reason, the God you once knew is gone. But something else is still here. You can feel it when you're alone and not trying to be. When the noise dies down. When you're not numbing or scrolling or trying to be productive. When you finally sit in your own skin and listen. There it is. That feeling. Not comfort, not clarity, not peace. But wait. A sacred kind of ache. Like the universe is holding its breath just to see what you'll do. You can't explain it. And maybe you don't want to, because explanations would shrink it, define it, kill it. This absence, it doesn't want to be solved. It wants to be felt. We try to push it away with reason, with cynicism, with performance. But it waits. It waits beneath the hustle, beneath the sarcasm, beneath the carefully constructed identity. It waits for the quiet. And when the quiet finally comes, so does the ache. Not just for meaning, but for belonging. You don't just want to know what's true. You want to know where you fit in it. You want to feel connected to something that outlives you. Something that makes your pain more than an accident. Something that turns your breath into a prayer, even if you don't use that word. This isn't about religion. This is about being human. This is about the part of you that refuses to be satisfied with explanations alone. the part of you that wants presence more than proof. You can pretend it's not there. You can mock it, minimize it, deconstruct it, but it keeps showing up in beauty, in loss, in music, in death, in silence, especially in silence, because there's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty at all. It feels like something listening, and even if you tell yourself it's nothing, it still changes you. It still makes you speak more softly. It still makes you pause before you close the door. It still makes you ache for a love that won't leave. And maybe, just maybe, that's not absence at all. Maybe that's what people meant by God before the word got ruined. Not a man in the sky, not a list of beliefs, but a presence you feel most when you stop trying to feel anything at all. That still persistent something that meets you in the quiet and won't let you go. Grief will break you open, and when it does, all your beliefs or non-beliefs get tested, not on a chalkboard, not in a debate, but in your body, in your breath, in the weight you carry that no one else can see. Grief doesn't care if you're an atheist or a mystic. It comes for everyone. It doesn't ask what you believe. It just asks, who did you love? What did you lose? And what will you do now that the world has changed? There's something about grief that feels like prayer, even if you're not praying. The silence becomes sacred. The tears become offerings. The memories feel like scripture. You find yourself talking to someone who's no longer there, not because you believe they're listening, but because you need them to be. Even the most rational people, the ones who scoff at anything spiritual, will whisper into the dark, "Are you still with me?" Why do we do that? Why do we reach beyond the visible when the person we love is gone? Because some part of us refuses to believe that love just disappears. Some part of us knows that grief isn't just emotional pain, it's spiritual disorientation. Grief says, "I've lost someone irreplaceable." And your body, your soul, your story, they all scramble to make sense of a reality that no longer includes them. This is where theology and psychology meet. Because grief isn't just sadness, it's the collapse of meaning. It's your internal world being shattered. The narrative of how things were supposed to go, erased. Psychology tells us to feel the feelings, and that matters. But there's something else happening under the surface. Something bigger than just processing emotion. Something sacred. Even people who don't believe in God will say things like, "I feel like a part of me is missing. I still sense them with me. I talk to them sometimes." And they'll follow it with, "I know it's not rational." But why do we assume rational is the only truth worth listening to? Grief doesn't obey the rules of logic. It opens up a portal, not to certainty, but to depth, to presence, to a place where you realize that life was always more fragile and more beautiful than you thought. And in that space, something changes. You start to understand why humans have always reached for something beyond this life. Not because we're afraid, but because we love. And love makes us want eternity. Even if we say we don't believe in souls, we act like we do. We light candles. We keep photos. We talk to the dead in quiet moments. We hold on to the idea that love somehow outlives the body. That's not weakness. That's not delusion. That's the soul refusing to let go of what matters most. And if you let it, grief will teach you that the ache you feel isn't just for the person you lost. It's for the part of you that still wants the world to be more than atoms and accidents. It's for the part of you that hopes someone or something is holding all this pain with you. Not fixing it, not explaining it, just holding it. Grief makes mystics of us all, even the ones who don't believe, even the ones who swear they're done with God. Because grief is a kind of doorway, not to answers, but to honesty. And honesty is holy ground. Part 5. Beauty that breaks you. There's a kind of beauty that doesn't just impress you, it undoes you. It doesn't ask for applause, it asks for surrender. You know that feeling. The sunset that stops you mid-thought. The song that pulls something ancient from your chest. The way light hits a stranger's face, and for some reason, you want to cry. You don't know why. It's not logical. It doesn't fit into your schedule or your 5-year plan. But for a moment, something pierces the armor, and all you can do is stand there and let it wreck you. We've gotten used to treating beauty like content. Scroll, double tap, move on. But there's a deeper kind of beauty that refuses to be consumed. It stops you. It exposes something sacred inside you that you forgot was there. And in that moment, you feel it again. That longing, that ache, that sense that something is reaching for you through the veil of ordinary life. Beauty isn't just decoration, it's invitation. It says, look deeper. There's more than function, more than survival, more than utility. Psychology can talk about awe and wonder, the way they regulate the nervous system, how they inspire humility and openness. That's real, that's important. But awe isn't just a neurological event. It's a spiritual crack in the concrete. It reminds you that you're not just a brain with a job, you're a soul with skin, and your soul is hungry for beauty, not as escape, but as evidence. Evidence that maybe, just maybe, this life isn't random. That maybe this moment was meant for you. That something is trying to speak through color, sound, shape, silence. And here's the strange thing. Beauty doesn't solve anything. It doesn't fix your grief, or pay your rent, or explain your past. But somehow, it helps you bear it. It gives your pain context, not by answering your questions, but by reminding you there's a kind of truth too deep for words. Have you ever noticed how beauty makes you want to share it? You send the photo, you play the song, you try to describe the sky, not because you want to impress someone, but because some part of you can't hold it alone. That impulse to share beauty, that's spiritual. It says, I saw something bigger than me, and I need you to see it too. You don't need to believe in God to feel that, but you do need to admit that something in you is still reachable, still interruptible, still capable of wonder. And wonder is holy, even if you never say the word. There's a reason we build cathedrals, why we light candles, why we cry at music we don't understand, why we stand at the edge of the ocean and feel small, but held. Beauty humbles us, not with fear, but with love, with a kind of sacred disorientation. It reminds us that we're not in control, and that maybe that's not a threat, maybe that's a gift, because control is a burden, but awe is a release. And maybe God, whatever that word means to you, isn't found in arguments or doctrines. Maybe God is hiding in the moments that make you forget yourself, the ones that leave you breathless, undone, awake. You don't need to explain it. Just let it break you open. That's what beauty is for. Part 6. Loneliness isn't solved by people alone. Loneliness isn't just about being alone. Sometimes it shows up in a room full of people, at dinner with friends, in the middle of a conversation, laughing even. And still, something aches. You've probably felt it, that strange kind of emptiness that follows you around like a shadow. Not because you don't have relationships, but because something in you still feels unseen, still unheard. still disconnected from the deeper current. We're more connected than ever, digitally, socially, constantly. And yet we're starving for something those connections can't give. Not more followers, not more texts, something else, something ancient. People can hold your hand, but they can't always hold your soul. Because what your soul is craving isn't just community, it's communion. That word's been hijacked by religion, but it's older than any ritual. It means being with something in the deepest sense, being known. Not for your persona, your resume, your wit, or your image, but for the soft, terrified, longing creature you are under it all. Most people never touch that kind of knowing, not because they don't want it, but because they're scared of being seen that deeply. Because to be seen like that, it feels like dying. Dying to the act, the armor, the performance. But that death is the beginning of something sacred. We try to solve our loneliness with noise, with busyness, with people who fit our preferences. But no amount of human connection can replace the spiritual ache. That quiet pull towards something beyond this moment, beyond this body, beyond even this life. Psychologists can call it existential loneliness, the experience of being a self, separate, mortal, aware. But that awareness, painful as it is also an invitation. Because the moment you feel your own smallness, your own isolation, your own need, is the moment you also become available. Available for something deeper than company. Available for presence. Presence that doesn't need to be explained or proved. It just is. You might feel it in prayer, even if you don't call it that, or under a night sky that makes you want to kneel, or in a stranger's eyes when you let the mask drop for half a second. And for that instant, the loneliness lifts. Not because you found the right words, but because you stopped trying to fix it and let it speak. Loneliness doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means something's right. It means you're awake to your need. And need is not a defect. It's a doorway. But most of us slam that door shut because we don't want to feel small. We want to be strong, self-contained, unfazed. But being unfazed isn't wholeness. It's numbness. You weren't made to be unshakable. You were made to be held. That's what the ache is for. Not to punish you, to point you, to lead you toward a connection so deep, so sacred, so beyond words, it can't come from another person alone. Yes, we need each other, desperately. But even the best love falls short if we forget this. You are not just lonely for people. You are lonely for something infinite. For the quiet certainty that even in your emptiest moments, you're not alone. And you don't need to name it. You just need to let it find you. That might be what God was always meant to mean. Not an answer, a presence. The one that sits with you when no one else can, and doesn't try to fix you, just stays, pursues. You can tell yourself you don't believe. You can dismiss the myths, reject the dogma, laugh at the rituals. You can debate theology, quote neuroscience, and say it's all just human projection. But when night falls, and you're alone with the soft animal of your body, when the noise dies down and the questions start up, something deeper begins to stir. It doesn't care what you believe. It only knows how to ache. Longing doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't knock politely. It erupts. When your child is sleeping and you realize how fragile love is, when someone dies and no explanation feels big enough, when beauty hits you so hard it makes you cry in your car for no reason. Longing is the truth that stays when all the beliefs fall apart. And that's what makes it sacred. Because belief can be constructed. It can be inherited, borrowed, faked. But longing, that's real. That's raw. That's something you can't manufacture. Even if you've stopped believing in God, you haven't stopped longing. Not for rules, not for certainty, but for something that holds. Something big enough to bear your grief. Tender enough to sit with your guilt. Close enough to know your heart without needing words. You don't need to be convinced. You don't need to join anything or say the right phrases. You just need to admit that there's something in you that still reaches. That's the beginning. The rest comes slow. Not in revelations, but in pauses. In quiet openings, in the spaces where your defenses finally stop working. Psychology says, longing is a sign of attachment wounds, unresolved needs, developmental pain. That's true, but it's also more than that. It's not just a problem to fix. It's a pathway. Longing shows you what your soul was made for. It's not a glitch, it's a compass. And maybe that's where God lives now. Not in beliefs, but in the direction your heart keeps pointing, even when you tell it not to. So don't be ashamed of your longing. Don't rush to fill it or label it. Let it break you open. Let it teach you how deep you go. Because you are deeper than you know, and no belief system can contain you. But longing, that lives in you like breath. You don't have to believe to long, but once you long, you've already started to believe in something, even if you never say it out loud. Guilt gets a bad name. We treat it like a malfunction, a glitch in our wiring. We try to override it, silence it, rationalize it away. But guilt, in its rawest form, is proof that your soul still works. It means you care. It means your conscience hasn't gone numb. Yes, there's toxic guilt, the kind that grows from shame, trauma, control. The kind that says, you are wrong, not just you did something wrong. That guilt is poison. But the real thing, the sacred kind, that's different. That's the voice in you that still knows the difference between right and wrong, even when the world pretends it's all gray. It's the weight you feel when you betray your own values, even if no one finds out. It's the ache of knowing you've hurt someone, even if they forgave you. That ache, it's holy. Not because it condemns you, but because it calls you back. Guilt wasn't meant to be a prison. It was meant to be a signal, a sacred discomfort that says, this isn't who you are. And if you listen, really listen, it doesn't shame you. It invites you to repair, to return, to become again who you're capable of being. We all mess up. We all fall short. We all have regrets we carry like stones. But guilt doesn't have to crush you. It can soften you. It can make you more honest, more human, more aware of the fragile web of connection you live inside. Psychology tells us guilt can be prosocial, that it leads to empathy, accountability, change. That's not just behavior, that's sacred transformation. When you let guilt teach you instead of torment you, something changes. You stop defending, you start listening. And in that listening, you begin to change, not to earn forgiveness, not to fix your image, but because something in you longs to make it right. That longing, that's love in disguise. You don't need religion to tell you guilt is real. You felt it in the silence after an argument, in the message you didn't send, in the face of someone you disappointed. You don't need dogma to feel remorse, just a heart that still knows how to bleed. And maybe guilt, the real kind, is actually grace. Not punishment from the outside, but mercy from within. It's not there to chain you, it's there to change you. And the ones who feel no guilt, they're not free, they're cut off. So don't run from it, don't drown in it either. Let it do its work, let it shape you. You don't need to carry guilt forever, you just need to let it carry you back to what matters. Because in the end, guilt isn't about sin, It's about love, and love, real love, will always break your heart a little, but it will also teach you how to heal. We've built our lives around control. We schedule every hour, track every metric, lock every door. We believe if we just do enough, plan enough, know enough, we'll be safe. But life keeps proving otherwise. The call you didn't expect, the diagnosis that shook the ground, the moment someone you love changed or left or disappeared. Control is a comfort story, but it's a story that breaks. And when it does, something inside you shatters with it. Because control wasn't just about managing life, it was about avoiding fear, avoiding vulnerability, avoiding surrender. We think surrender means giving up, but real surrender isn't defeat, it's truth. It's what happens when you stop pretending. Psychology might call it radical acceptance, the point where you stop fighting reality and begin to meet it as it is, not as you wish it were, not as you fear it will be, but as it is. That moment, when you exhale and say, okay, this is what's here. That moment is sacred, because only then can you begin to be real. Control tells you to stay busy, to fix, optimize, hustle. But your soul doesn't want perfection. It wants presence. It wants to be here. Even when here is messy, especially when here is painful. The people who seem the most peaceful, they're not the ones with everything figured out. They're the ones who've made peace with not knowing. They've stopped wrestling with the river and learned how to float. That's not passivity. That's trust. Trust in what? That's up to you. Some call it God. Some call it life. Some don't name it at all. But there's a deeper rhythm underneath all this chaos, and surrender is how you feel it. When you let go of control, you don't fall into nothing. You fall into reality, into the unfiltered, unedited truth of your life. And yes, it's terrifying, but it's also the only place where real transformation begins. You don't need to believe in a higher power to practice surrender. You just need to admit you're not one. You are not in charge of everything. You never were. But maybe, just maybe, you were always being held, even in the unraveling, especially there. The illusion of control will keep you safe, but only at the cost of your soul. So maybe it's time to loosen the grip, to let go of the script, to fall into something wider, deeper, truer. Because surrender isn't failure, it's freedom. And in that freedom, you might just find what all your striving couldn't give you. Peace. Not because everything's perfect, but because you've stopped needing it to be. No one tells you this, but a lot of ambition is grief in disguise. It's not just about drive. It's about trying to fill something missing, something we don't want to admit is missing. We chase success, perfection, validation, not always because we're greedy, but because somewhere deep down, we're trying to outrun the hollow that opened up when someone didn't see us, didn't stay, didn't love us the way we needed. So we became achievers, performers, fixers, people who get things done. Because if we do enough, maybe we'll matter enough. But here's the catch. The applause never quiets the ache. It might distract it, delay it, bury it under gold stars and praise. But at 2 a.m., when you're alone and the mask slips, it's still there. The ache that says, will anyone love me if I stop performing? We don't just want success, we want to be enough. And being enough is not a finish line. It's not the last promotion or the perfect body or the best-selling book. It's something else, something spiritual. Psychology calls it self-worth. Theology might call it belovedness, but underneath all the terms is the same need. To be held without earning it. To be worthy even when we're not producing anything. We all carry a quiet desperation to be seen as we are, not for what we do, not for what we offer, just for being. But that kind of love can't be bought. It can't be won. It can only be received, and that's terrifying. Because receiving love without earning it means letting go of control, letting go of image, letting yourself be known, messy, flawed, unfinished. And that's scarier than any failure. So we keep striving. We keep perfecting. We keep pretending we don't need rest. But our ambition is often a cry, a sacred one. Because what we really want isn't to be impressive. It's to be embraced. You don't need to stop working hard, but you do need to ask yourself, what's the work for? If it's to prove you matter, you'll never stop. But if it's to offer what's real in you, you can begin to work from a different place, a rooted place, a place where your soul is not on the line every time you show up. The need to be seen, known, and loved, that's not weakness, that's sacred hunger, and no amount of achievement will feed it. Only presence will. So pause, breathe, lay down the armor for a minute. Let yourself be loved where you are, not when you finish, not when you win. Now, because you don't need to earn what was always meant to be given. And maybe, just maybe, that's what grace really is. There are moments that don't make sense, not logically, not evolutionarily, not practically. You're walking down a street, and a certain kind of light cuts through the clouds, and suddenly you're crying. No tragedy, no loss, just beauty, and it hurts. Why? Because there's something about beauty that breaks past our defenses. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't fit in your worldview. It just arrives, uninvited, and rearranges you. You can be the most rational, hardened, skeptical person in the room, and still be undone by a piece of music, a painting, a child's laughter. It's like your soul remembers something your brain forgot, that you were made for wonder. Psychology can say it's a dopamine response. Neurology can map the brain's reaction. And those things are true, but they're not the whole truth. Because beauty doesn't just stimulate us, it calls us home. You don't need to be religious to feel this. You just need to have a heart that still breaks. That break, that crack in your chest, that's where the sacred gets in, not through belief, through awe. Awe is the moment the ego lets go, the moment you remember you're small, but not insignificant, tiny but beloved. Beauty levels us. It humbles the cynic and heals the skeptic, because you don't argue with beauty, you surrender to it. And maybe that's the point, not to conquer the world, but to let the world touch you, not to master it, but to be mastered, just for a moment, by something beyond you. Because when you stand in front of real beauty, whether it's a cathedral or a sunset or a stranger's kindness, you remember you are more than a body, more than a mind. You are a soul wired for wonder, not to escape life, but to feel it so deeply that you weep over light and color and sound, to feel it so honestly that beauty becomes not decoration, but direction, a hint, a whisper, a clue that maybe, just maybe, there's more going on here than we know. Call it God, call it mystery, call it what you will, but don't ignore it, because the ache you feel in the presence of beauty isn't weakness, it's reverence. And that reverence, that trembling, quiet awe, that's the place where even unbelievers start to pray, not with words, with wonder. You don't need to believe in God to be cracked open by beauty, but when it happens, You know, you've just been touched by something holy. Somewhere along the way, you were taught to think of God as a theory, an argument to win or lose, a belief to hold or reject. God became a debate, not a presence, a doctrine, not a home. And so you let it go, maybe with anger, maybe with grief, maybe with quiet resignation. You walked away from the version that failed you, the version that judged you, controlled you, shamed you. But now, here you are, still longing, not for certainty, not for rules, but for something real, something that meets you in the silence, something that sees past your masks, something that can hold your sorrow, your awe, your contradictions. You wouldn't call it God, not the way you were taught, but it lives somewhere deep in your chest, in the way you ache when you love, in the way you grieve when you lose, in the way you marvel when the world stops being explainable and starts being beautiful. That quiet thread, that invisible pull, that's not weakness, that's not delusion. That's your soul remembering. Remembering the God you forgot you knew. Not a God of rules or rituals, not the projection of a parent or a punisher, but something deeper, the stillness beneath your thoughts, the presence beneath your loneliness, the voice beneath your self-doubt. You don't need to believe in God to need God, because God is just the word we use for what we know but can't explain. Love, truth, meaning, not facts, but foundations, not proof, but presence. And if you've been burned by religion, if you've been wounded by people who use the name of God to control, manipulate, exclude, I get it. You're not wrong to walk away from that. But maybe what you walked away from wasn't God. Maybe it was a distortion. Maybe it was a shadow of something that once was real. Because the real thing, the unnameable, untamable, undeniable source behind all this, it keeps showing up in beauty, in love, in pain, in presence, in you. And it's not asking for belief. It's inviting you to remember that you belong, that you're already connected, that this ache in your chest is not something to fix, it's something to follow. Follow it into wonder, follow it into silence, follow it into the parts of yourself you buried when the world told you to toughen up. Because God, whatever God is, isn't far away, isn't outside you. God is the space within you that still hopes, still loves, still longs, even when you don't believe, even when you've given up, especially then. So this isn't about going back. This is about going deeper, into the mystery, into the ache, into the place where your soul is still alive. You don't need to believe in God to need God. Because needing isn't weakness, it's honesty. And maybe that's all God ever wanted from us. Not performance, not perfection, just presence. So show up, right here, right now, uncertain, unfinished, undone, and unbelievably loved, still, always, anyway.